Continuing with the outline in today's video, I want to speak about this term understood as quote-unquote energy medicine. In the previous videos, I've been going into the third chapter of the outline where I approached the topic of Jesus being a healer and having performed healings and some other ancient philosophies where there have been accounts of this magical or this faith healing, as it is called sometimes, where based on pure intention or attention there is a result, which is the healing. I've been speaking about how hamartia, the concept of hamartia and sin is related in terms that it is a cognitive process. It is a conscious process that might have a result in the physical world. This is what the whole thing is about. But in today's video, I don't want to keep going with the outline, but rather go with the other part of the outline, which is gonna be this ongoing research. I have a separate playlist in this channel where I speak mainly about this ongoing research. I've been taking some time that I haven't uploaded videos in the last week because I've been working on a site to make articles about all of these things, and I'm gonna focus a little bit more on this ongoing research because, as I've been saying, the reason why I am speaking about ancient philosophies is because I found the scientific research backing up or leading into the possibility that these ancient philosophies might have some truth to them. So in this video, I'm gonna go into some of the research on energy healing done by Dean Radin, PhD and Chief Scientist of the Institute of Noetic Sciences. I've spoken about him before, and he is one of the pioneers in psi and parapsychology, which is specifically focused on these consciousness phenomena, on the metaphysical, and what he's doing. And I think his work is gonna explode in the near future because he's basically showing data and showing evidence that proves that there is a consequence to mental attention or mental intention in the physical world, a physical quantifiable consequence, and he's been doing this in a number of ways. In today's video, I'm going to focus on one of his latest studies on energy healing. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. In a recent interview, Dean Radin discusses this study and this research on energy medicine and energy healing with Jeffrey Mishlove, another known researcher on the metaphysical phenomena. This research basically consisted of 190 participants and 17 so-called or proclaimed healers, where all of these 190 participants had some sort of hand or wrist chronic pain, and it basically consisted on 30-minute sessions where these healers would go through at least 10 patients each, and they would measure different things from subjective things like pain reduction scales to more objective things, which I will review later. So what this study showed is that nothing new, because there have been previous studies regarding this, that people actually feel some improvement in their pain, or there are actual healings going on just based on this intention or this attention, which as he speaks about in the interview, is not really intention, it's just focused attention, because it becomes more complicated to truly define what intention is, such as energy. The whole idea of energy healing is, as he says, a misnomer, where it's not about the energy that the healer is applying on the participant. It's not about putting hands on someone, which on the other side, it has actually worked, and this is some sort of therapeutic healings where it's called touch or soft touch healing or Reiki, on all of these concepts. But it goes beyond that, because the claims are that just like some other psi phenomena like remote viewing, space and time are not really constraints and are not really relevant. It goes beyond that, and it has to do with entanglement. But in any case, the different methodologies used to confirm the variables in this experiment were quite interesting. As I said, they had the subjective approaches where they had this pain scale where people reported that their pain reduced based on this scale. At the end of the day, this is a subjective measurement, because even though we want to believe the participants 100%, just like the issue of consciousness, the issue of qualia, we cannot, as I've been saying before, we cannot see another person's mental image. Only they can see it. They can describe it to us, but only they can see it. Same thing with pain. Only they can understand and perceive their pain, and they can describe it in this scale. But at the end of the day, it's a subjective measurement. The other subjective measurement that they did in this experiment were the use of a quote-unquote a seer, a person with some abilities, with some proclaimed sensibility to psi phenomena. Now, Dean Radin, as I said, he is the chief scientist of the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and he has been doing this for a while, so he knows what he is looking for in the participants of his studies. So they had one seer as part of this subjective measurement, where they wanted to see if there was some sort of psi phenomena during these 30-minute session healings. And the reports are quite interesting. As I said, all of this, I'm gonna link it below on this video, the interview with Jeffrey Mishlove, as well as the actual research, which can be accessed by anyone. And I'm just gonna read some of the extracts from this research. On this part of the measurements, they choose the binary code for different aspects that this seer was describing and was writing in each session. But as part of this extract, it goes like this. It says, the linear regression models yielded significant associations between changes in pain scores and various codes, including energy color, practitioner touch, and the presence of ostensible non-physical beings supporting the session. Now, what does this even mean? What is an ostensible, non-physical being supporting the session? Now, when we go deeper into the psi phenomena, these clairvoyants, these people who have this sensibility towards energies and aura reading, and all these things that, as I've been saying, are also written in ancient philosophies, they speak about these non-physical beings which are supposed to be all around. These energies, it doesn't have to be our current understanding of ghosts or anything like that. It can be simple energies, even created by our own minds. But in any case, this is something that I find quite interesting, because this is a research that is done with all the parameters and the standardized methods of an actual scientific research. And this is on the website that I'm taking this from is sciencedirect.com, and these are papers written in this scientific journal. So this is an official research dealing with non-physical beings, and there are many like this coming forward. Just an interesting thing to keep in mind. As I've said before, these are subjective measurements that don't really provide a breakthrough or a scientific relevance, as these are simple observations by the seer or perceptions by the participants in their pain reduction. This cannot be objectively taken as a breakthrough in science. But the other measurements that were done in this experiment were objective and were going hand in hand with these subjective measurements. And the first objective one that I'm going to talk about is this use of something similar to a random number generator, which was used as well in the Global Consciousness Project, where they want to see if this randomness, which pervades the known universe as we understand it at the moment, can create patterns during specific world events or occurrences, as it was done in this Global Consciousness Project. But what they did in this experiment is just this, what they called a quantum noise generator, and just use it in these 30-minute sessions of healing. As Dean Radin says in the interview, they wanted to see if there was a quote-unquote disturbance in the force, alluding to Star Wars and this narrative where they have this idea of the force which pervades the universe. I've been saying this is in our ancient narratives, in our ancient philosophies, and it's also in our fantasy narratives today, sort of like the movie The Matrix. We have this idea that there is this force outside of us. So he is alluding to this famous sci-fi movie that we all know. He wanted to see if there was a disturbance in the force. But what they actually did is they created this custom quantum noise generator, and they developed metrics to measure time and to measure space. As I said, the links to this research and to these extracts are provided down below, but as I understand it, through the use of what they call electron tunneling and avalanche effects, they develop these metrics to measure time and another metric to measure space. What they wanted to see is if there was what they call a Negentropic effect. As we know, entropy is chaos, is randomness, is the measurement in which things can go into chaos. A Negentropic effect is the opposite of this, is a pattern, is order. So they wanted to see if during these 30-minute sessions there was a pattern, and this is exactly what they found out. They found out a noticeable deviation, and they said that this occurred around 24 minutes in the session. So after the initial parts of the process of healing, they actually noticed this deviation, and this is huge because this was done with 190 volunteers and 17 healers. This was not a single thing that they measured. They measured this over and over and over, and they found the pattern at around 24 minutes. A noticeable deviation, a negentropic effect. They found this disturbance in the force, or more correctly, this order in the force through this focused attention. As Dean Radin says, quote, "It is possible that focused attention bends entropic spacetime." As part of the control for this experiment, they left this quantum noise generator run after the session for 8 hours, and they didn't notice this negentropic effect. This negentropic effect, this deviation that I've been speaking about, they only found it during this 30-minute session at the 24-minute mark. This is a scientific finding. If you add this to the subjective measurements, which was what the Seer saw, and the actual reduction in pain that people reported, then you have a case. You have an actual scientific finding here that people are barely beginning to look at and barely beginning to understand. As I said, they do not understand the mechanism, they do not understand the action, but we have data and we have evidence that there's something going on during focused attention. As I said, this was not the only objective measurement that they used. They also used what they call spectroscopic analysis of water. This was taken from some previous experiments made with water, and also a very famous one that I've spoken about before, regarding Dr. Masaru Emoto, who did some experiments on the molecular structure of water based on being presented or being exposed to different intentions. We can call them intentions. It was in the presence of music, in the presence of prayer or meditation, in the presence of different actual physical events which required a person's focus or some sort of specific energy. In the case of when it was exposed to music, for example, some sort of vibration, if you may. And he actually found out that the molecular structure of water would shift depending on the exposed attention, intention, or vibration. And then it was concluded that with more harmonious vibrations or intentions, the water would present more harmonious structures than the other guys. But in any case, what they did here in this specific experiment is that they attached a necklace with a vial of water. And as they had some criticism on previous studies, what they did in this research is they used laboratory grade water, distilled water, just which couldn't have any sort of contaminants in it that would interfere with the measurement that they were trying to get. In this part of the experiment, they attached a necklace with a vial of water to the healer and another one to the participant, to the person with the pain in their hand or their wrist. What they found out is that there was a molecular difference in the water on the necklace of the healer, but not on the one of the patient, of the participant, which is quite interesting because this molecular difference it only occurred on the person who was starting the attention, who was starting the focused process, the cognitive process, and who initiated the interaction, which in this case would be the healer. The healer emanated this attention. So I find it quite interesting that they found out that only the molecular difference in the water was only on the necklace of the healer. As they discussed in this interview, they were trying to use participants which didn't have a particular understanding or preference or belief into this sort of energy healing. But on the other side, the healer, of course, believes that he is capable of doing this. This is why they are a healer. And they want to perform the healing. So in the case of the healer, they do have this preconceived understanding or belief that they can heal. And it's quite interesting that they found this molecular difference in the necklace of the healer. But at the same time, this is an objective measurement. This is not a subjective thing, as I said. The Negentropic effect, where they actually found a deviation on the pattern of this quantum noise generator added to this difference in the molecular structure of water. These are objective measurements and objective variables that only occurred during the session of healing, during the focused attention. Now, we don't know what it means, this molecular structure difference. We don't know what it means, this deviation on the pattern of negentropic effects. We do not know the mechanism, but what we have now is data that there's something going on during these sessions. We have both the subjective, the actual pain reduction, the seer seeing things and reporting colors and reporting these ostensible energy, non-physical energy beings sustaining the sessions, along with these variations in the environment, which is the molecular structure of water, and this deviation that they speak about. So we have evidence that there's something going on during these sessions. Now, this is a particular experiment done by Dean Radin and his colleagues, but I found a lot of these sort of experiments. These experiments are fairly new. They only started after the 60s, and there's been a lot of criticism to them. But today we have a lot of different things that are related to these ideas that are becoming mainstream, like the concept of acupuncture, the concept of Reiki, the concept of quantum healing and hypnosis, and all these things that are basically focused on attention and on the conscious process which goes into healing. But when it comes to the actual physical effects and measurements, this is a huge breakthrough. And in the future, I will be going into some other experiments done in mice, where we have a researcher doing this sort of experiments, which he has replicated, where he has actually cured mice using the same quote-unquote energy healing. He cured mice from cancer which was developed in the laboratory and applied to the mice, and then he cured them. And he has replicated this experiment using a simple energy, quote-unquote energy healing technique. Now, despite the morals of these experiments, I think the implications and the possibilities of helping people, helping humans to recover from these sort of very destructive illnesses would be, at the very least, reason enough to keep investigating and to keep putting resources into this sort of research. And perhaps when we understand a little bit more of what lies behind these visible effects created by consciousness, created by a simple cognitive process or intention or focused attention, we might be able to pay closer attention to those tales and stories of healers written in ancient philosophies. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.